assessed by the appraisal district itself. They're the ones that are gonna tell you, and just like Mrs. Armstrong said, it's market, the market value, what homes are selling for, what real estate's selling for in our area, that sets the parameters. They don't set the parameters, the market sets the parameters that everything is appraised within.
To that point, the houses, I've done a little research on houses that have sold recently in my neighborhood. These figures are nowhere near. I don't know where they get the numbers from, but.
Well, that's one thing I would take up with the appraisal district.
And that, I guess, my final point is, to put that burden on us when we're not the ones responsible for setting up the numbers in the first place. That's frustrating. That's frustrating.
I understand.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And per se, I live in the city limits, and my lots went up $45,000. So if I could, which everybody in this room knows, there's nobody gonna buy a city lot in this city for $45,000. I've also have to inform them there is no city sewer. So now you're gonna have to put out another $15,000 to get the permits to put in a septic system. That's just, this is not the first time it's done this. I've been down here 4 other times. It's went to 10,000 once, 20,000 a couple of times. I've had to explain there's no city sewer in this, on there. There's no electricity. It's hard to try to sell a lot for $45,000 and then have to tell the person, well, now you got to put $15,000 more with it for a septic system. Just, it's not.
Makes no sense.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Howlett, you said something earlier that I just need a little clarification on, please. You said earlier that the ARB doesn't have the model info or know anything about that. So if we were to get as far in the process as coming before you all, what are you basing your decisions on?
On what you bring to us and what the district brings to us. We're hearing just what's brought to us. We're not devising stuff of our own. If you bring stuff to the meeting that makes us feel in your favor, or if the appraisal district brings to the meeting there, we're going to make that decision between the two based on what we hear.
So you have no criteria that you're following, except they're saying this
Except we
and they're
know of.
saying this.
Except, ma'am, that we have gone through training to a certain degree to understand where this information is coming from. We have gone through some training to know that, you know, to understand market values and things of that, how businesses and a lot of that are taxed. And so that's all I can tell you is what you bring, because you may, on your home, you may bring us pictures, and the appraisal district may, you know, that may be the first time they see it from you. Man, there's lots of factors that go into that decision, but what you bring to this meeting when you protest, when you come in here, that's what we're gonna hear and make a decision on. Okay?
I would like a little clarification on something.
Yes, ma'am.
So as far as the information that came in the packet, as far as the homestead homes, it states in there that you can't raise the value of the property more than 10% if it's homesteaded. If it's over the 10%, then you would gradually have to increase it over the years to get to that point. But that contradicts what I'm seeing on my values. So I'm a little confused as to what that property tax code means versus what's happening.
Well, I can answer that one. So they made away, because this happened to my house last year, they jacked mine up 30%. Okay, so my taxable value went from X to 1.3 times X. Right, but my actual taxable value, there's two different numbers. I don't know if they show, look at this document very quickly. Value adjustment. So if you look at your notice, you'll see the differences in your value, but the amount, so you say our house was $100,000 last year. This year they come out with a notice, they say, it's not 100 now, it's 130. Your actual taxable value will actually only be 110. So if you go online on tomgreencad.com or tomgreencad.org, you know, when you look at it, you'll see a bunch of different rows, and you'll see the actual full market value, but then you'll also see a line that I believe is labeled something like homestead cap loss, and that's where they're subtracting off that extra 20%. Now, next year, you're gonna get another 10%.
That's not the
out of
case
it.
though. I calculated mine, it was still like 28%, even deducting that homestead exemption.
And
Now,
that's
at the
why-
homestead exemption, there's a homestead cap
Oh.
that limits the
Yeah.
amount your taxable value. You have a market value, which is what they say your house is worth, and then there's a taxable value, which is what they can actually tax you on, and that amount can only go up 10% per year. Your market value can go up 800%, like some people said, but if it's their homestead, they should only see their actual taxable value that they're gonna pay taxes on increase by 10%. If that's not happening, then I'd encourage you to call the appraisal district and get with them, because I've worked with them I protest my taxes every year since 2017. Okay, so I know how this works. They're usually pretty reasonable over there. If you come to them with some kind of, some kind of actual evidence other than, hey, my house isn't worth this, they'll work with you. If you come in and say, hey, I think the gentleman just walked out and said, hey, the houses in my neighborhood are selling for $40,000, and you got my house at $320, they're gonna look at that, because it's not perfect. They're doing a lot of modeling and things, and it's not perfect. You come to them and say, hey, this is great. Yeah, my house would be worth $100,000, except my roof is bad, and I can't afford to replace my roof because it's a $50,000 repair. That comes off your taxable value. I'm in the mortgage business. I've been in the mortgage business 26 years here. So, we're gonna see that. If you have an appraiser come out and appraise your house, you have a $100,000 house with a $50,000 roof that needs to be replaced, guess what? Your appraisal's gonna come back at $50,000. And this appraisal district will also, if you come to them and say, hey, here's my roof is bad, here's the repair estimates for this, they will knock that off of your market value too, because that's how it works. It comes off there. If you come to them with comps and say, hey, here's other houses that sold in the last 3 months in my neighborhood, they're the same size, same condition as my house, but you've got me on the tax rolls for this, and these houses are actually selling for this, they're gonna take a hard look at that and probably reduce your value to that. You're never gonna come before this board, at least that's been my experience with it. So, I'd encourage y'all, the best thing to do is to do it, if you look at the bottom of your notice, the very last paragraph tells you to contact the appraisal office if you disagree. They're reasonable people for the most part. Come to them with your evidence. Say, hey, here's what I've got. I've got all this deferred maintenance on my house. So yeah, if it was in the condition most of the houses in my neighborhood, then yeah, it would be worth this. But I've got $50,000 worth of stuff that needs to be done to this house in order to bring it up to that condition. They will probably reduce that off of it. Or if you don't like the result, then you can come to this appraisal review board and say the same thing, and if we agree with you. How the process works is don't miss your June 1st deadline. File your protest if you're unhappy. Make an appointment to meet with these guys. Come into the appraisal district. Show them what you've got, why you don't think the house is worth that. If you don't like what happens there, then you can continue to protest here. We're going to hear them all summer long, probably on into September, as Mr. Hall said before. And you can take a shot here. If you don't like what happens here, you have the option of going to arbitration or appealing it to district court. This isn't the final say by any means, the notice that you got in the mail. But the real problem is, as the gentleman said earlier, you have a tax system. If you don't like property tax system, then start voting for people who get rid of it. That's the ultimate solution for this problem of market value. But, when you get this notice, the easiest way is to look at the value on here and go, hey, would I actually sell my house for this? If the answer is, hey, if somebody brought me this offer, I would laugh at them. I'm sorry, I'm the same way. I'm like, man, I don't like how much I'm paying, but I look at the value. When I had my previous house in the Bluffs, I get it, and I'd be like, yeah, somebody, I didn't like it. I didn't like that my taxes went up. But then I was like, hey, the fact is, if somebody brought me an offer for this to buy my house, I would laugh at them. I wouldn't even consider it, I would just fold it up into a paper airplane and throw it in the garbage. So I never protested my taxes when I lived in the Bluffs for that reason, because,
Yeah, but it never went up so drastically, that's the point.
well, like I said, I'm a mortgage broker, what I'm seeing right now in the market is I'm swamped. Every day I get a new loan out.
I
I
thought
have
once
buyers.
you reach 65, you know.
Yeah, that's
you
what,
wouldn't-
that was gonna be my question.
Yeah, and-
Once we reached 65,
And
I
it
thought,
still
I got
went
a
up.
notice that our taxes were frozen.
Yeah.
School
But
district.
the values still go up.
But, yeah, your values still go up, there's two other components to your taxes, there's the value.
We built a house 2 years ago, and it went up by 40%, over 40%. Now, what kind of improvements could we have done? Just the grass.
I don't wanna get into the
To do,
details of your
yeah.
case, because, you know, if you come back here, but, I mean, I would take that up with the appraisers, you know, in the front section of this building, and see, they can explain to you why they did what they did with your
So
appraisal.
even if it went, even if the appraisal went up, I'm still gonna pay last year's taxes, right?
You have, I'm assuming, again, I don't know your specific situation, but if you have a freeze, then that should be the case. Your market value may continue increasing, but you're not gonna see an increase in your taxes.
Okay.
Well, that's not what they told us, because we had already come in during the week. And
Did they
said
understand that
somebody
you have a
had come
freeze?
in. What's that?
Did they understand that you have a freeze?
I guess not. She had
Now,
all
the freeze,
kinds of
now, the freeze will
excuses.
not apply if you actually do improvements to your house. If you put an addition on your house, that's not gonna work. So, I mean, you told them to shut it down, but call the appraisal, call your appraiser who works on your account. If you call the main line, they can tell you who that is and discuss it with them. They can explain that. We can't.
If I can say one thing, we're all citizens up here. I volunteered for this because I care and maybe make a difference. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have volunteered for this. My taxes went up, I'm gonna protest them. My taxes went up last year. I called the appraisal office. They said, do you want a hearing in person or do you wanna talk to somebody? I said, have them call me. They called me, we worked it out. Everything was cool and it was open. And probably a lot of you can do that this year. But again, we're all volunteers, we all pay taxes.
You know, they've gone up years and years and years, but never this fast.
Oh, I know. Mine too, man, mine too.
Yeah.
There are members here that need to go,
And I'm-
they.
yeah,
They're working
I've got
on
a-
jobs that need to go, so we're going to adjourn. We appreciate everyone coming. Thank you.
I saw you. Like I said, I just raised my hand. I don't think
Because they're the ones here. All these,
Yeah.